Hey everybody, we're starting over. Thanks again for coming. Happy Wednesday night, Robbie.
Yep.
Line Producer Titmouse. Yeah, tell us where you
Woo!
started. Where you started, what your story is, that kind of deal, etc.
Crowd already went wild.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add
Um,
in the sound effects in post too. I'll just.
Perfect. Yeah. So I've been working in animation for close to 10 years. Um, I came to LA as a counseling student, and I was like working with at-risk youth and slowly put together a comic book that I illustrated, self-published it, and kind of used that as leverage to get my foot into some very low budget animation projects. Um, Starting at Hot House Industries, they make like Mr. Pickles and stuff, and I started as a PA there on a show called Gentlemen Lobsters, which was a very short-lived series about two lobsters living in an apartment for CISO. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with CISO, but that was a very short-lived streaming platform from NBC. Um, Went on to do a couple other things for Buck TV, a live action movie. Then finally found myself getting an interview at Titmouse um, for a show called Nico and the Sword of Light
Woo-hoo.
on Amazon. Really cool kids show. Um, but I starting at Hot House, I got a chance to do everything. It was very low budget, and anytime they needed a designer or an animator or something, I kind of just raised my hand and uh, kind of just learned it on the fly. And it was kind of the best way to get a bunch of experience very quickly. Um, and very similar thing at Titmouse. Before before we were a union shop, we were able to kind of like bounce around to different projects, kind of do a bunch of stuff really quickly, and I learned a lot in a short amount of time there. And they were able to kind of keep me around, and I've been there for 7.5 years now. And I am currently producing a show called Royal Crackers on Adult Swim. Uh, Everyone should go watch it.
So it sounds like
um,
you kind of became known as the guy that would like, yeah, that could that was not only dependable for the work that was there, but also like would step up or take on opportunity or like, yeah, I don't necessarily know how to do this, but I'll learn it. And yeah, I'm excited to try and learn it.
yeah, there's definitely an eagerness in my late 20s to kind of catch up and making a transition from like a like a humanities kind of like industry into like creative industry. I really needed to like uh, learn not only skills but also where do I belong in this
Mm.
industry. So like trying to do everything or giving everything a little whirl was like my best way to figure out what I liked to do and what I wanted to do. Um, and so it happens being in production is much easier on your wrist, and it gave me um, more natural use cases for like people skills that I kind of was already working on as a counselor, right? So
Mm.
very kind of helpful uh, that way.
But you said an interesting thing. You kind of like it sounded like you're kind of saying like the world told you a little bit what you were very good at, or at least like where you were tending to, that it
Yeah.
was this kind of like people manager role, it sounds like.
Yeah, like leading people was something that I was good at in sports growing up. I was good at I'm one of 7 kids. Like, just being around people was always like a natural thing, and that's kind of why I got into the helping profession, and then finding my way to producing in animation was like the best fit for me. And I think that's kind of what we're all looking for, right? It's like, where do I fit in, and where's like the least path of resistance to success, right? And I think early I kind of like I was animating, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like I'm animating lip sync on a show, and as like an assistant. And I remember like looking to my left and seeing like a kid who was younger than me, then looking to my right and seeing like a guy who was older, like much older than me, and thinking to myself like, oh man, this is some pretty high level competition for this job, and like it ranges people, so much experience or not experience, So I was kind of instantly looking for something that was more naturally mine. But yeah, that's kind of how I got here.
Cool.
Uh,
So for people, for students that don't know, just to be set like kind of a general base and general tone, and because a lot of our audience is mentees or people that aren't yet in the industry that may not
mhm.
know what the heck a line producer does. What
Yeah.
so you want to describe like the day to day of like here's what I actually do on a day to day basis. Here's the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, sure. So like depending on what day you're asking me, my day can be completely different. So I am, as a line producer, I'm usually the first person hired on a show
Mm.
through the creator, and I do all the hiring, and like interviewing, collecting portfolios, getting like candidates in front of our directors or art directors, for designing storyboards, animation, post editing, animatic editing, dialogue editing. So I'm kind of like hands in the pie of all of the departments.
Mm.
So depending on what day you ask me, it could be a whole bunch of different things. If I hear that this is a big storyboard group of people, I don't know if that's the right term for it, a storyboard
Yeah.
group. Um,
Yeah. I met that works.
so like in the story,
Storyboard cabal. Yeah.
yeah,
Cults.
in the storyboard phases of a show, the day to day is, we don't have too much time to do each episode. So it's really just like kind of checking in on where we are, seeing if we're going to make our deadline. If we're not, finding resources to help get those deadlines met. Um, talking some people off a ledge.
Mhm.
Whatever happens on that day. But anything can really happen. That's one of the cool parts about this job, and this industry, is like there's so many hats you can wear and contribute to something that's really cool. And uh it's an honor and a burden to like be able to be involved in so many places, and it's great.
So you've seen a lot of artists come through a production and a lot of storyboarders as well too. And kind of the general tone for this is general advice for, for artists coming on. So I'm sure you've seen some stories of people burning themselves out or people
Mm.
that flamed out and succeeded and people that have been like just absolute successes in the production. It's been like, holy shit, I love this person. We got to hold on to them. Or this is a person that I would recommend to every single person that I know if I ever move on to another production or another somebody's looking from. Do you have like something that's common that you see in people that are successful or that you recommend to other people or that get recommended to you, like general traits, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, to that, like, I've seen people really thrive in one show and like really struggle in another show, and
Mm,
that difference in show doesn't have to even be genre or style. It can be where that person is in their life at the moment. So it's struggling is going to happen. It's always like a thing, but I think one thing that I do really appreciate is people, artists who are honest with their workloads, honest with their deadlines, honest when they need help. No one is ever going to be um, disappointed in you because you asked for help, but they would
mm,
be disappointed if we got to the deadline day and an hour before you're like, I'm not going to finish. And,
mm,
and it kind of puts the whole team a little bit behind and that's kind of like where we don't want to be. Um,
mm,
so being honest is like always the best, especially with your line producer, right? Like they are the only ones who can really um, find you resources, like a freelance artist to come in, take a couple pages from you, or um, or I can look at your work and say, hey, you know what? Don't clean up any of this stuff. I'm gonna have this assistant clean these up, and you can kind of just keep roughing out the storyboards. Um,
mm,
if everybody at the same time came to me with that problem, it wouldn't be so easy. But usually, there's only a few people that kind of need the help, and that's totally fine and almost expected. We're trying to do, especially in television, when you're trying to mass produce TV, right? You're trying to
mm,
like make every 2 weeks you're launching a new episode,
mm,
in a new team. So there's a lot of cascading effects to that. If one of them is stalled out, it kind of affects the other ones, uh,
Mhm.
in one way or another.
Would you say productions, and I have my own personal answer for this, but like, would you say that productions can be very cookie cutter in their schedule and very predictable in their schedule of like, okay, this is going to launch every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, every weeks, and everybody hits their deadline? Or are productions very, very much from production to production? And how do you juggle that? And how do the artists inside that project also juggle that?
Yeah,
If that question makes sense.
no, it does, and I would love to also hear your answer to this because, like, it varies depending on the network you're working for, and Titmouse has the opportunity and the great pleasure to work with everybody. We're like a service studio, Disney, Hulu, Netflix, Adult Swim, uh, Nickelodeon, you name it. Like we've kind of Nike, we've done a bunch of Chobani yogurt commercials. Like we kind of do them all. So depends on the client you're working for. Are they going to give you a lot of notes? Are they going to give notes late? Are they going to give notes at the wrong time? Do they have like an expectation that kind of far exceeds what they've bought?
Mm,
Um, is your show creator or a showrunner, um, do they do they change their mind? Do they push things too far? Do they not really um, understand the schedule? That's
mm,
why, like a lot of times, one of my first things I do is like really hold a creator's hand and like walk through the schedule and be like, this is where we are, this is where we're going to be, this is where we need to be by blank. At the same time, this is going to start. We kind of like hold their hand through it.
mm,
There's all kinds of ways that it can kind of be shifted around, and I would say that to a certain extent, schedules and productions are pretty flexible. But that flexibility comes usually at the expense of another episode, right?
mm,
So if you have an episode that's really high in action or high in like high in resource need, but you're able to kind of put the next one to be, kind of chill. Like this episode isn't like crazy. Um, that kind of helps kind of alleviate that strain of that big episode, having it surrounded by two smaller, um, let's say less intense episodes.
mhm,
So you can go do all kinds of stuff. You get a rewrite in the middle of cleaning up boards, and the next episode looks good. All right, we're gonna bring the artist in from the episode out, like the next episode, to come help us clean this one up and take away a week from this episode, and we'll put it back in post. And there's all kinds of ways you can play Tetris with the pieces on your schedule, but only to a certain extent. But asking for that flexibility is definitely worth it because it definitely can move around a lot. And Jim, I'd love to hear your experience on how that's worked for you.
yeah. I mean, I come at it a lot from the creative experience of it. But even just on a very granular level, even on the show that I'm on right now, Big Nate, um,
Mm,
we have we have, and again, very much talking specifics, we have generally between 32 to 34 page scripts, and for a 22 minute,
wow.
and or for a 22 minute. Yeah, you say wow, but like that seems like a high page count for most for productions, but we have had episodes that come in at animatic and they come in short. They come in 21 minutes. And we've
Action?
had no, not even action, just fast moving comedy is the name of our, and we time everything relatively fast. And like as soon as the joke ends, we're on to the next joke.
Yeah.
Um, and so we've had 34 page scripts that time out to like 20 minutes and 30 seconds. And we've had 37 page scripts that, or no, sorry, like 36 page scripts that time out to like 20 minutes. And we've had like a 30 page script that times out to 29 minutes at first cut.
Yeah.
And, and the 29-minute one, like was easier to execute for the board artists than the 20-minute one, because the 29-minute one like had a little extra dialogue, and it
Mm,
is timed fast, but it had a
reuse.
little extra dialogue, and so there wasn't a lot of action description, but there were blocks of text because it was characters arguing, whatever. And so like we never on our show, we never really know how much work an episode is gonna take based on the line count, or based on the like number of montages, or based on the number of songs.
Yeah.
And so we're always having to excuse me, for episodes that we thought were going to be light in boards, sometimes they get a little crazier, and so we're having to shift around resources, and we're have to pulling a board artist on somewhere. So even for like, I'm I I'm very particular about like our board schedule, and I'm pretty militant about like, here's when I want our rough pitches to go and our clean pitches to go, and like here's when we should be turning stuff into animatic. um but we, inside of that, have had to be flexible,
Yeah.
and have had to communicate with the teams, and have had to pull in some extra resources, because you never really know. And
Mhm.
the only thing that I can do as a supervisor personally is try and foster that communication as much as possible, and communicate to the team to be like, dude, if you're feeling the pressure, like let us know, because there's a possibility that it's you, there's a possibility that it's the script, there's a possibility that it's the read, there's a possibility that it's other factors, and we have no idea sometimes. Like, so if you're feeling stressed, no matter what it is,
Yeah.
just come talk to us and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. That's a great point because like you can look at a script and like it, oh, that was a fun read, right? And then when you start like really, breaking it down and assigning it out, and the artist might say like, hey, this doesn't really hook up. This doesn't really like
Mhm.
make sense. And it's not weird for people to bring up story issues when you're like doing your boards. And those are things you want to get ahead of as quickly as possible. So that's a great look at it. Yeah.
So for new artists, because we have a lot of like, I mean, our mentors are like pretty experienced, but we have a lot of new artists that haven't yet broken in, or people that are like on the verge of breaking in. Would you have any advice for somebody's first gig, or they're taking on a freelance gig, and
Yeah.
they haven't had much work, but they're getting their job, they're getting their first professional work, for not going into that place of just saying like, you know what, I'm just going to hunker down and I'm just going to get it done, and I'm going to get it done, and I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm a little worried about it or anything. Do you have any advice for like, to help people pull themselves out of that hole and just start communicating?
Oh, wow. I think just be nicer to yourself. Like,
Mm.
you're a human, you're just like a person. You can't do it all. You can't work 15-hour days and expect your life to be the same. So like, um, yeah, Jennifer, you just have to be easier on yourself.
Just forgive yourself. It's
Just,
okay.
just be nice. Stop hitting
Just
yourself. They
be,
were
yeah,
doing
yeah.
stupid stuff. Matt TV, everyone check it out. Um, but yeah, I think that just being honest about, again, honesty. Like if like your deadline is hard, if it's your first job and you really want to make a great crazy impression, um, you know, being a responsible and like coworker is also a huge plus. Being someone who flags problems, flags like delays, that's a line producer's best friend, and I'm sure it's also supervising producer Jim's best friend too. It's like you just need to know because hearing that late gives us less flexibility to help make that work. Um, I think just honesty is always the best way to go about it.
Yeah, and we've talked about every handout. We talk about where we think there might be story issues, or we think there might be hookup problems, and like it's it's tough to get out of the mindset that talking about things that might be problems, or like are pooping on the script, or make me look bad because I'm not seeing something in the right angle, but like communicating that honesty of like, oh, I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure about this. Oh, yeah. Am I reading this correctly? Am I getting this wrong? Or is this like, what's the intent behind this moment?
Right.
And talking about all that stuff like it helps me understand it a little bit better, or even like flag problems at the beginning.
Yeah, and also like if you have someone like Jim at your disposal, it's very likely that Jim has run into that problem before. and has worked through all the possible solutions and has a good one for you. So just like ask, and maybe
Mm.
someone has already figured out that little Rubik's cube that you are dealing with.
Or I don't, and then it's just fun to figure it out together, and that's part
There's
of the fun
fun
too.
problem
I'm like, fuck, I
solving.
don't know. All right, let's come up with something.
Yeah.
Never
The
be
thing is,
afraid to ask questions. Like I'm still within the first couple of years of my career, but like even if you think it's the dumbest question in the world, like you'd rather get it off your chest right away and get a simple answer and response instead of just being
Mm.
left in that like what should I do phase or just like winging it. It's so much easier to just ask questions about anything, even if it's layout, even if it's like shot direction, scene direction, anything. Just like if you're unsure, odds are like it's a valid question in any arena when it
yeah.
comes to storyboarding, and like somebody's there like gonna be there to help you.
Yeah, I like the saying that I used to see in the LA Metro. If you see something, say something. I say
Mm.
that on my crew all the time. Just please just say it. Just whatever you don't hold your tongue. Just say it. And another good thing, another good skill to work on to help you get through those things is something that I do on all my shows is a thumbnail pass. I ask
Mm.
artists to do a thumbnail pass. You get your handout. Say it's a 4 week storyboard schedule, which is pretty typical, 4 to 5 to 6 weeks, depending on the show. Um, uh, you take a week and just thumb it and export MOVs of like the dialogue with your thumbs, and you'll quickly see where it works and where it doesn't before you even start roughing out drawings. Um, and then also if you have like a thumb pass ready and you can show that to your supervising producer or director, they have clay to work with. They can give you a lot deeper answers uh,
Mm.
if you come a little bit more prepared with like just like some layouts that you kind of like thought about or angles, like especially if you're going to take a big swing. If you're going to take a big swing in your boards and like do a crazy upshot or something, have that kind of thumbed out, and then they'll give you the green light or not. But good to get those like thumbs approved or at least noted before you head into doing some tighter drawings.
That's a really interesting point, and I'm realizing now that like maybe when you look online and you look at professional portfolios, you see like gorgeous finished storyboard drawings, but how often how often do you look at like super rough thumbnail stuff that somebody just sketched on a notebook or sketched on a napkin really quickly and just to get the idea of the shot? Like
All
it
the
sounds
time.
like you're pretty used to looking at that. Okay.
Yeah, we'll sit and like we'll get a director, art director, writers, showrunner. We'll like break down the script together before we even hand it out to artists.
Mm.
And for big shots, the director or the art director will thumbnail like, oh, like this kind of shot. And like we get those kind of before we even hand them out, they're approved by the creator and the showrunner.
Mm.
Um, and like you know that those are your big set pieces for your pages. And it kind of you don't want to take the thinking out of the job for storyboard artists because storyboard artists add so much cool stuff, their own personality, their own little jokes and stuff. So you don't want to take away from that. But if you can take away some of the thinking of like the big important shots for them and like
Mm.
show them what everyone's expecting for this moment, it kind of makes the rest of their pages a little bit easier, right? Because they're not like spinning their wheels in those.
Mm. So you mentioned that you're looking at did you mention you're looking at portfolios a lot? You're looking at like young artists.
Yeah, so like part of my job, in the storyboard realm is finding our directors candidates that have the skill sets, the experience, if they have it, great. If not, we'll deal with it later. But skill sets and style that kind of fit the show, right?
Mm.
Um, if you're if you're like an artist who the whole portfolio is Adventure Time-esque drawings, that's great, but I'm probably going to be a little bit hesitant to show your portfolio for a show like Vox Machina or
Mm.
like um Scavenger's Reign, right? It's
Mm.
just not the same style. um
Is that
and
a downside against an artist, or is that okay?
That's fine, but just
Okay.
know where your skill sets are and know what kind of artist you want to be. Do you want to work in comedy? Do you want to work in drama? Do you want to work in you know, whatever genre it is that you want to do. If you want to do hybrid of both, you need to kind of like find both of those skill sets and find your own mix of them. Um, and obviously, like fundamental drawing skills is like uh, you're a lot. It's a lot easier to take risks on green artists if they in their portfolio they show you that they know perspective, they know anatomy, they know because all those things help you draw faster, right? Like that muscle memory of drawing in perspective is kind of it's like priceless, um, you know, for a lot of shows.
Mhm.
I'll say not all of
So,
them.
and Jacob has an interesting question pertinent to that.
And you're
I'm
just
just
not-
asking how many different styles should be included in a portfolio. And I feel like that's a tough question for me, but but I want to hear your answer. I'm very interested in what you say.
I mean, that is a very hard question. I think I think the number of different styles isn't as important as like being proficient in any one of them.
Hmm.
You know? Rather, you know, you even as an artist, wouldn't you rather like know your style and then have like skill sets that kind of can cover some other ones, you
Hmm.
know, like here and there. You know, you don't have to have it all at once, and don't feel pressure to have it all at once because that's really an impossible uh some impossible ask, right? So
Hmm.
find what you're good at, what you like to do, really like work on that, and also build your fundamental skill sets around it. And then when you're asked to do another style, if you have those fundamentals, it's easier for your learning curve is a little shorter because you can make mistakes faster because you're drawing faster and you learn through those mistakes a little bit quicker.
Hmm.
What would you say about that?
That a very similar answer, that how many different styles should be included in your portfolio? As many styles as you're curious
Mm,
in learning, and
yeah,
not because like not be for me, the impetus should not be I'm going to learn the Avatar style because I want to get a job on an Avatar show because I really like watching Avatar, you
right.
know. And that's a different impetus for me than looking at an artist's portfolio who um, is interested in drawing that style because they're interested in learning the anatomy of the characters, or interested in learning human anatomy, or interested in learning how those shots um how how Avatar uses its shots, or how, you know, a show like Vox Machina uses its shots, or a show like Motor City, what the difference between Motor City
Mm,
and Vox Machina storytelling is. And I can always it, you can always tell when an artist has received the advice from a portfolio recruiter of you should have one drama dialogue sequence, you should have one comedy sequence, and you should have one action sequence. You
yeah.
can always tell because it's those three on the portfolio, and
Hmm.
one of them is good, and one of them is okay, and one of them sucks. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, you're doing those sequences because somebody told you to do those sequences rather than following your natural curiosity. And
Hmm.
that's how many styles I think should be in your portfolio. As many as you are curious about learning how to draw and curious about the filmmaking and are excited to do pieces for.
I love that answer. Because seeing the forced stuff is always like, um, you know, it's just it's you can tell when people aren't invested in the art they're making. Uh, it's easy to tell.
I took a King of the Hill storyboard test, and when I was trying to break in, and I was fucking miserable doing it. And I finished it, but at the end I was like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Is it because I like working on King of the Hill? Or I would like working on King of the Hill? Or is it because I want a job and I think that show is funny and it would be a good feather in my cap? And the second answer was the one, and the first,
Yeah.
it was not the first answer, and fucking everybody could tell. And I was not gonna get a good job on that show.
But I'm sure, like, I mean, King of the Hill storyboarding, like, if anyone has any, if anyone's looking for it, the King of the Hill storyboard guide, I think it's online. You can find it. It's one of the best ones that there is. So I'm sure you learned a ton trying to
Mhm.
do those tests.
Yeah, all those Brad Bird
Yeah.
pointers. Fuck
Yeah.
yeah.
Some
Yeah,
chats here. Want to go to the chats, or we want to continue with some
yeah,
questions?
no, let's go to the chat. Um, yeah,
There's a
I mean,
few
let's.
questions in the that
Oh,
I
shit.
dialed up for you guys too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you want to jump in and ask one that's
Yeah.
impertinent?
Yeah, we covered a couple of them, but this one's still centric to portfolio since we're still talking about it. What is something that makes a portfolio stand out to you, especially for newer artists?
Also interested to hear what you have to say about this, Jim, but I would say like the fundamentals, like really good perspective drawings, really good anatomy, character turns, knowing how to draw characters from different angles, like being able to solve those little problems in space is a huge up.
Mm. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. On top of that, I love seeing the passion of the artist, and I
Mhm.
love seeing like their personal Instagram feed, and it's personal comics that they're making about like the dinner that they had or a funny
I love
event that
that.
happened
Yeah.
to them, or like, here is, I don't know, Rebecca Sugar's early drawings of the three of Ed and Eddie kissing. Like, those are hilarious, funny drawings, and they're great. And I love looking at that stuff because you can tell like she was interested in the intricacies of that. I mean, yeah, on top of all the fundamentals, gorgeous drawings, appeal, a nice perspective and understanding of space and understanding of staging and excitement about staging. I love seeing the passion about certain
Yeah.
stuff,
The
and that
personal
like elevates a point. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, personal stuff like a character that you've created and you've given a voice to and you want to like animate it a little bit. Like love, that's always a great sign of
You can
someone who's in it to win it.
you can always tell the people that like won't stop making work. That's
Yeah,
like, okay, like you better give this person a job because they're just going to be doing their own work on the side, or they can be doing it for you and having a good time too. Like
yeah,
they're just gonna keep making work constantly, and it's
that's
awesome.
great. Yeah, if you have that itch to create, that's like another huge because the job is drawing all day. So like, are you comfortable doing that? You know, I remember the first time I like met somebody who was like going to sit me down and like teach me about Flash, and this was like God, over 10 years ago. And I remember like going through it, we're sitting there for like 2 hours. And he's like, you just gotta like ask yourself, do you really want to sit in a chair and draw for 8 hours plus? And like I
Hmm.
was like, I don't know, do I? It was like,
Hmm.
and here we are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So swing things to a more production question. How do you decipher a healthy production from an unhealthy production? And how do you create solutions mid-production to swing it back to a healthier side?
Mm.
Are there telltales? Do
I think early burnout is a telltale of a unhealthy production.
Hmm.
But a lot of times, just like a production, just like any kind of like hangout with people, if there's tension between people or coming from somebody, that can always lead to kind of weird meetings and a weird feeling when you go to work, and um, those kinds of things are very hard to uh, fix midstream depending on that person's position and where they fall in line in the show. But I think going back to honesty, see something, say something. I think that the only way to really fix anything is to bring it up to your line producer, supervising producer, or whoever is kind of like got an overarching, look at the show or the production. Because it's part of our job is also to create that atmosphere that um, provides the opportunity for artists to give you good work. Uh, we don't want anyone to be like, I don't know how to say it, like walking on eggshells at like 40 hours a week. Like that's
Hmm.
a really rough way to live. And you can tell through people's art how they're doing, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's just it's more of a case by case basis, but I think just honesty and having those hard conversations is the way to get around those.
awesome. Uh, do one more workflow question now. Do you have any recommended plugins or files, habits for storyboarders or pretty much any artist so they can help avoid delays or kind of like, I guess throughout the years, have you seen cool things that made artists go faster along pipeline?
Storyboard artists, I would say because Storyboard Pro is the program, right? We're all working in Storyboard Pro. It's probably going to be here forever, in some way or shape or form. And but the things that they keep adding to it are really interesting, like new tools, like perspective tools, going back to it again, or the use of 3D. If you can learn like just base level Blender and bring in 3D elements into your storyboards, that helps you move faster, like creating like a 3D environment, a very, very like simple and basic one. You don't have to have details or anything, but if you can do that and you can put your camera anywhere you want, take a screenshot, and now you're just drawing the characters. I feel like that goes a long way with storyboards. I remember I've been on shows where I've just hired a 3D artist just to create the interior of a room, just to give it to the artist to like keep them working on just the characters. So that's something that I'm always like pumped to see from storyboard artists, is integrating the use of 3D modeling. You know, I think we want you to focus on the character, right? So the background work, if you can automate it a little bit, that's very helpful.
Yeah, we do that on our show all the time. We have FB or OBJs of the
Yeah,
sets that we have. We just throw them into Blender, take screenshots, and then bring the screenshots into Storyboard Pro and just stage everything that way.
it's the
That's
best.
great. Yeah.
Changes the game. Yeah. I don't know anything about plugins, but file habits, I will say, always version up. And never write final in your file name.
You're just tempting the gods on that.
You're
Yeah.
tempting the gods.
Yeah.
You will have to go back into that file and click on something and resave.
I will
I would
say,
add to that.
even
Oh,
for like the for like the
no, go.
3D stuff, even if you don't learn how to model, a lot of times I'll literally just like map out a shot with blocks and then just set up a camera, and that can help you streamline looking for perspective or looking for an angle so much quicker than trying to like sketch it out roughly. Like, sure, you can have your thumbnail, but once you kind of get to that cleanup stage, you can pull up SketchUp, Blender, Maya, or something, and just literally drag in a cube and just set up your camera shot to how you want. And a lot of times it's like such a time saver for me.
Or even just take your phone camera and just do it
Oh
like live.
yeah.
Yeah, just take like fucking building blocks. I'm like, okay, this is this is the chair,
That's
this is doll furniture or whatever you got too, you know.
that's actually brilliant. Like having a Lego set where you're just like, I'm just gonna
Yeah, you see some of the behind the scenes on like the Spider-Verse shots, and it's just like cardboard that they set up, like a piece of cardboard here, a piece of cardboard here to represent a building. And it's like, okay, they're swinging the camera through, and it just takes an iPhone camera and then just rough sketches over it too.
Oh
You
my
know,
gosh, that's
it's
brilliant.
just it's just DIY filmmaking like crazy.
Yeah, it's great.
People use Minecraft. That's fucking brilliant.
That is amazing.
That is
That,
that's so good.
that is fun and brilliant. While you're in there, you should learn how to do some coding too. I hear that's what all the what else we got
What
here?
else do we got?
So another workflow question. Any organizational habits, this one just dropped in, for storyboard artists that make your life as a producer easier?
Inside, it's really out of my hands. That's really more of a director's kind of um, um, jurisdiction, or how they want them to be set up. I think layering your files cleanly uh, is very helpful. Oh, one little thing that maybe doesn't help me directly, but is helpful if you're shipping a show to someone else. Color all the characters the same, like have one character for the whole sequence be orange, one character for the whole sequence be purple, one character, it's just like you separate them, especially if they're like fighting or doing something like that. That's always very helpful to keep the lines a little separate, color coding. But other than that, I don't really mess around inside files anymore that much. Happily.
As somebody that deals with breakdowns a lot too, like
Yeah.
if you're on a production and you're using incidental characters just for random like crowd shots, but you don't have the time to draw them exactly as they look like, just drawing a quick label on them, like generic man A, and
Yeah.
you're tracking them like through each shot so that production can look at the animatic and just go, oh crap, okay, that's generic man A, there's where she staged him there, this where she staged him there, etc. And
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. It's just like a little dash, little explanation of who that is, or have
production
it
will
margins of your storyboard
mhm.
file
Production will love you forever, absolutely love
forever.
you. You'll be the favorite storyboard artist.
Yeah,
Have you
you
seen a
will.
lot of have you seen a lot of stories of people getting into the art through production roles? Or like how do you feel about just getting into the industry through a different role, or getting into the artistic industry through a different role, through a PA role, or or through other roles?
Yeah, I think that's I think any seat you have, like seeing it all being made is useful experience to sponge up information, right? When I first started at Titmouse, I was a coordinator. It was like 2016, I think, or 15.
Hmm.
And I was a coordinator, and two other coordinators on my show are still at the studio. One's another producer and one's an art director. You're like,
Mm.
you can take this path any way you want, Tim Mouse is really great about giving people opportunities and really asking people what they want to be, which I think is a really hopefully other studios are doing that. But as far as I can tell, that's not being in production is not like a you're never going to be an artist kind of
Mm.
thing. If you can get experience, like I would say that as a producer, all my experiences as a designer, animator, PA, sound recorderist, coordinator, production manager, they all help me be a better version of what I am now because of those perspectives that I gained through those experiences. So I think it's absolutely a great way to get your foot into a production, learn as much as you can, observe, and kind of plot your moves while you're in there.
As a line producer, are you responsible for hiring like production coordinators and the production assistants and the P and the production manager and all those that whole crew as well?
I am, and I work very closely with them usually. Uh, you know, Especially the production manager, work very very closely with them. I've had a great like experience at Titmouse and learned a lot of great processes of how to create, especially in like the Flash After Effects pipeline. I'm
Mm.
very experienced in that pipeline. So I have very kind of like I don't want to say I'll say firm beliefs on how things most effectively get made and done in those little like interdepartment things.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I'm very involved in the hiring of the production crew, and a lot of times teaching the production crew because no production is the same, regardless of the pipeline. There's always going to be a little bit of like flavor in every new show, and every time I make a new show, I have to relearn my job. Um,
Mm.
I think everybody should expect that too. Like every show you're storyboarding on, you have to relearn your job. It's going to mean something different to that show or that director or that producer. Yeah.
But they're also hiring you for the other shows that you've been on for what else you can bring from other shows onto their production too. Or at least
Yeah,
that's my experience.
yeah, for sure. Like if you work on a super complex show, like it's that and the industry knows it, right? Like the industry knows like, oh, they worked with it was 3D animation with 2D plates or like you're working with live action animation collabs, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like those kind of experiences aren't widely had. So you might find yourself a little bit couple extra doors open for those. Uh,
So
yeah.
so when you're hiring, like when you're looking at PA or PC candidates, um, and you see that they have an artistic background where they express like some interest in moving to an artistic role from PA to PC, is that a mark against them, or do you think people have that mark against them, or are you just like, okay, cool, yeah, for now, for like I understand where you want to go, let's, but I'm interested in talking to you as a PA or a PC.
Yeah. you know, I've hired a ton of production people who are uh, very honest about where they want to be eventually,
Mm,
and I don't take that as like a mark against them at all. I think that being a passionate artist and being someone who really wants to work in the industry and being interested and willing to work in production
mm,
to find your way actually a really good sign to me. Um, it's someone who like has an eagerness and a drive to do what they want to do, but they also understand that that kind of stuff takes time,
mm.
and they're not afraid to learn from a different seat in the meantime. Um, so I think it would be a plus, actually. Um,
That's cool.
yeah.
That's great. Do you have anything that would help? Like any tips that would help somebody who is coming in to be cast as a PA or a PC, or is a PA or PC to help them stand out? Do you have any like tips that would help them, like, you know, pop to the forefront as, yeah, this person does a fucking great job, and I want to continue to work with them and support them?
I mean, like, in terms, any advice on like how to be the best production person
Yeah,
version of
yeah, yeah,
them?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just like you know, be willing to learn and be patient and you know, knowing what you want to be, but like um but knowing that you also have a responsibility to the show in this role,
Mm,
and like showing that, you know, like you know, that speaks volumes to your personality and like your work ethic and sense of accountability and responsibility. Those are all like baseline things that you look for in any position.
mm,
Um, and I think that if you can do that as a coordinator or a PA, then you'll absolutely take your responsibilities seriously in an artist role, right? Like if you're willing to take your job seriously in a role that you're not really that interested in, the sky's the limit for if when you get the chance to do what you want to do.
mm, mm,
I hope.
mm. But yeah, well, and I love hiring artists also that have a background in production,
Mhm.
um, because they also understand that production is extremely tough,
Yeah.
and that if production is asking for something in the board, whether it's, call outs, or whether it's,
Mhm.
hey, can you name their file this way, or can you upload it this time, that it is for the good of the production, and that somebody who is an artist that has that background in production has empathy for the people in production, and know just how hard a grind that job is, and how it can be completely thankless sometimes, and yet PA and PCs fucking hold this industry together.
Yeah, it is really a shame. It's like the unsung heroes of, I think, the backbone of any show is the production crew. I think it's an invaluable experience to like sit in that seat and then become an artist because like as a production person, you know what you wish the artists were doing, you know, like wish they
Mm-hmm.
were like, well, naming these files better, like putting a background in every shot, like calling out characters or incidentals, or not tightly drawn props, you know, like just like telling us where things are, where are we in this picture,
Mm,
um, and taking those lessons as a production person into your art is huge. You like you'll always have a job if you know how to draw for the production people,
mm, yeah.
for sure.
I got a second labeling. If that's a practice that I can recommend everybody just now, like instilling in themselves, because I also have a background in like character design stuff, and it's like the amount of files as a revisionist where I've opened and everything was just not labeled, and it was my job to like go through and relabel things. Build in a workflow now where you're like labeling things in your files. That will, in my opinion, make so many other people's jobs so much easier, and is such a subtle way to like be such a spotlight on a production of just like I've had directors be like, yo, this the conforms you did on this, what
Mm,
like
Yeah,
nuts. So it's
thank
like
you.
just get in
Like,
a practice of
yeah,
like labeling, so even if it's your own portfolio piece, because that's stuff that like you have no idea how helpful that is on the chain of like the entire episode, but also like the subtlety of like people notice that kind of stuff. Like people see kind of like how Robbie said earlier of like color call outs where it's like you have consistency if like one character is orange or purple or green or whatever. Like those subtle things like stick out so much where like your contemporaries, your directors, people like remember that shit. And that's why they like call you back for more gigs or reach out to you for certain shots. And so it's like the little kind of like, I don't know, like, I guess like bookkeeping of it, of just like labeling and just kind of like organization stuff helps so many people. And if you can start doing that stuff now, 10 out of 10 recommend.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And I feel like that not only does it help everybody else down the line, but it also should be helping you as well. Because when you have to go do a little revision or you have to go fix something, you don't have to remember how you laid it out. It's all just like laid out in front of you. And it's like just moving pieces around. Organization is just huge when you're working in animation, inside the files, in your folder structure, in like file naming. It's a skill set that it just it what's the word? It's a skill set that transcends uh, uh, any position. We love to see
You,
it.
do you have any aspects of show running like a Titmouse that led to that really successful shows or working experiences for the talent? Anything that was consistent for like these are the tenets of a good showrunner or
Mm.
of a well-run production besides the communication one that you mentioned before?
Yeah, I think organization.
Okay.
Here's one thing that like I think that helps in my experience at Titmouse and what I've learned from Titmouse. Is if you have the baseline of everything kind of organized and the baseline of the production in a good spot, you can take on these monkey wrenches that are thrown at you with grace and like in stride. But if you are struggling to have organization and struggling to have the baseline stuff covered, those monkey wrenches are huge splashes and they really ripple throughout stuff. But if you have like the organization and the processes in place and everyone is like on the same page, those things are much easier to kind of to deal with and kind of rebound from and learn from and get better things out of it.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's in terms of show running, that's just like I don't know if you're using that term in terms of what like what like Jim and I do, but or if you're talking about like a showrunner who's created a show and is running the show from the creator seat. But in terms of what we can do as animation professionals is just have your baseline process and structure in place. And then once you have that in place, um, you can take those risks and take big shots or handle the monkey wrenches. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned. Um, Help yourself.
And I'm going to get like particularly personal as an artist for a moment, but I think that also uh, applies to a personal life or a financial life or an emotional life. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
I I find that I do when I'm stressed about something else, whether it's money or, you know, my dog is sick or my, parents or one of my parents is sick or something like that affects the work because it's way harder to concentrate on like the artistic pursuits when you're worrying about the base level stuff, when you're worrying about relationships or you're worrying about that type of stuff. And um I always appreciate when one of the board team comes to me and says just like, hey, just so you know, like my dog is sick and I have to go to the vet a couple of times and I'm a little worried, and knowing that um helps me give context for the work that they're doing. And so I understand like, oh, they got some other shit going on right now. And like, that is base level stuff. That's like, okay, we're making cartoons
Right.
is up here in a concern, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and like my mom is sick is like all the way down here, and you gotta like, if something down here happens, you gotta drop everything down to that level and like take care of that, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And you know, keeping your life as much as possible like relatively stable and having like rhythm to your day makes making art a lot easier.
Yeah, and it sounds like, some people might hear that as like, oh, organization, that's not fun, and it's more work, but like it's also way more work to rebound and try to fix messes than it is to like have some structure to your life and then thus your art. I think that like what you're saying, Jim, is about the, the hierarchy of needs. I always like, I just, this analogy came to my head, like when you're on a plane and they're like, help yourself first before you help somebody next to you. Like, it's like, do that, like make sure that you are taking care of number one, and then you can kind of like help take on extra pages or something. But gotta have number one sorted out first.
That's kind of like it is for me. It comes from a little place of privilege of like, like things are going okay and a job is relatively okay, but like, yeah, knowing yourself as an artist, knowing that if other things start popping up in your life, that work is going to be tougher, and it's okay to communicate that to your superior, to anybody that you're working with will help you help you work through that tough experience, and
Yeah.
will help you know thyself a little bit, and know like, okay, maybe my drawings are going to be a little wonkier, or I'm going to feel worse about my drawings because I have other emotional things going on
Yeah.
right now. And again, be kinder to yourself, dude. Just be kinder to yourself, and that solves all your problems. But yeah,
It's easy to forget,
yeah.
like all this negative self-talk. Here's my counseling shit again, right? So like, if you can just speak nicer to yourself and like give yourself some slack, and uh account for the other circumstances that are happening, you know it's easier to kind of like look at what you're doing and help prioritize what you should be focusing on, and stuff like that. It's all important.
All right. Last question. What was your comic called, and can we find it somewhere?
Oh, it's called, I don't know if the website's still up. It's called The Adventures of Wook and Womp.
How do you spell Wook and Womp?
Wook and WOMP. It's kind of like a Wookiee. I got some stickers here. I wish I could give you guys stickers to the TV.
I see it on Kickstarter, and it's on Facebook.
Oh yeah, there it is. Oh, my Facebook got hacked. So if you see me on Facebook, I'm not selling you a pool or anything. It's not me. But here they are. These are my guys.
Oh, dope.
I haven't touched this thing in probably 10 years, but have all these extra stickers if everybody wants them.
Gonna bring it back to life.
Yeah, I'll ask Chris P about it. Maybe he'll tell me.
I think the blog spot is still up. Yeah, the blog spot is still up. There we go.
No
2014 was the last post, but yeah, it's
Oh,
up there.
Do not look at that.
Internet, everything stays there forever. It's great.
Hey, yo.
Oh, there's still an Instagram account too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Instagram account. I also haven't touched that in a long time.
Is
like
there a way we can hook up the viewers with a sticker? Like,
Dude,
even
yes.
if I gotta mail them out, I got a bunch of stamps, Jim.
Oh my
I
gosh,
can mail these out.
I have plenty. I have stacks of these. I got t-shirts. You guys want t-shirts? I'll send you a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
They're basically Kickstarters.
We'll raffle a couple off in the SfA chat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah, do we want to make that thing? I literally just like tell everybody just email the story for all.
Just email story for all, and we'll see if you want to sticker or shirt.
Yeah,
you got it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Story for all mentorships@gmail.com.
Okay, and then maybe you guys will help me manifest this show into create.
Oh, we got you.
We were there. We were there at ground zero, the recreation, the restarting of Wook and Wall.
Yeah, the reboot.
Anything else you want to impart on everybody? Any passing parting
Well,
thoughts?
I have some like really fun things here that I think Ed sorted out here, but
Yeah.
how many episodes are you juggling is a great question. I think that uh the production itself and the producer and probably the supervising producer as well as the line producer is juggling all episodes at once. Like anytime you're in a TV schedule, it's what they call a waterfall schedule. And so like I said earlier, like every 2 weeks a new episode is starting in that new department. So at any time in the schedule, there are things happening on each episode in different departments. So for Royal Cracker season 2, premiering on Thursday, February 29th, I'm always juggling 10 episodes in some shape or form. What else we got here? We talked about fundamental drawing skills, anatomy, perspective, and timing, honesty, what I'm watching lately. Scavenger's Reign. Has anyone not seen Scavenger's Reign?
We're only on episode 1 right now.
That shit is lit.
Oh my
I'm on
God.
like episode 8 because I've been watching with my roommates. Oh, so good. Yeah, no spoilers. Chat says no spoilers.
Masterpiece. Do not
So
sleep
good.
on it. Don't sleep on it. Go watch
So
it.
freaking good.
Go binge it. It's amazing.
God tier.
I've also been watching reruns of The Adventures of Pete and Pete. It holds up. It is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. It's the best Eyes to the World for a kid's show I've ever seen in my life. There it is. Look at that. Royal Crackers.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, I wish I had that magic touch
Yeah.
to put it on here.
Yeah. Royal Cracker season 2 comes out Thursday, February 29th. It's going to be awesome. If you haven't seen season 1, you can binge it on Max. It's very fun. If you guys like new metal and Korn and Limp Bizkit jokes, like this is the show for you. Or if anybody is from Bakersfield, California, watched it twice already. Hell yeah, Michael.
Leap day premiere.
I tried watching it while working, and that was a mistake. Not safe for work, depending on where your job is. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I'm watching right now. Any suggestions of what should I be watching? What else is out there right now? Jim, what are you guys watching?
I'm in cult documentary land right now, so I'm in my own world.
The Mothers thing? I really want to watch that.
That one's very good.
Oh, Blue Eye Samurai here is really good too.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you fuck with anime, there are some recommendations, but if not, like North American stuff, I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, if you guys haven't watched Vox Machina, if you're into anime and you haven't watched Vox Machina,
oh yeah, that's a banger too.
It's an insane show. It's mind blowing. Both seasons are just nonstop insaneness. Another good pitch for Western anime would be a show we did called Pantheon. If anyone hasn't seen that.
Oh, that was an Amazon one, right?
It was actually on AMC.
Okay.
AMC's first animated series. And then they premiered season 1 and never premiered season 2, and then packaged both seasons and sold it to Amazon.
Oh, okay.
But
because I remember that got like such little love, and I've only seen clips. I haven't watched it at all, but like everything looks so good in it, and I was like, when did this drop? Where was this? And like,
oh
man, streaming sometimes isn't the greatest with marketing stuff, though.
Yeah, I think Mike, I think you're right. I think it is only in New Zealand and Australia at the moment. Key lime pie. Am I gonna regret clicking on this?
No, it's Trevor Jimenez. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Is a lot of this people in Los Angeles? Or is everybody all around the world here in this chat?
Shout out where you're from.
Shout out to
where you're at.
location. In the chat, East Coast.
East Coast.
Yeah,
ATL,
the perimeter in
DC,
the house.
Philly. Yo, we gotta go to
Philly,
Philly.
yo, go
There you go.
Birds.
Yo,
I'm from Philly.
what'd you call it? Cable City.
No,
Cable
it's not.
Town.
It's
It's
Cable
no,
City.
I'm stopping.
Oh my God.
Hey, yo.
I'm not using that nickname anymore
The
after
Americana app brand.
I'm sick.
Hell yeah.
Burbank, shout out, Florida.
Burbank, that's Jay Leno country. Nice.
Nice. New Orleans, NOLA.
LA.
Vibe with the aliens. Shout out.
Well, I would suggest everybody, if everyone's, because one of these other questions that I thought it was great was, as we kind of like taper off here, I think one of the best questions you had was, as a green artist, where can you, what are some activities, some things you can do that aren't work related that can help you kind of find the community of this tight knit small animation industry. There's drink and draws you can go to. There's Sketch Party, which is something that's held at Benny Brewing monthly. Silver Lake Shorts is a really cool place to go at El Cid. You go see some Joe Kappa, Joe Bennett stuff. Um, and what else did I say? I think it's kind of, you just gotta like find these events that people are hanging out at, and like screenings and drink and draws, like I said, figure drawing classes, and just kind of show your face and meet some people. Baltimore, hell yeah.
Oh yeah. For greener artists, what advice do you have for building a strong network within the animation industry?
I think that's it. You kind of like go to these hangs, meet people, introduce yourself. Don't be shy. Everyone's so nice in the animation industry. Everyone's always looking for drawing buddies.
Yeah. I'm gonna
I
actually plug chat because I also help moderate an art community here in Burbank, and it's called Sketch Tunes LA, and it's
Oh,
literally like
hell yeah.
young breaking into the industry professionals and young artists that are just getting started in animation. We just every month we try to do like a meetup at least at a park to hang out and link up. When the weather's nice, we go to the zoo. Sometimes we go to the aquarium, do cool sketching,
Dude, look at
plein
this. This
air
is
art stuff.
awesome.
hell yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know you did this. This is dope as fuck.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. I'm one of the
awesome.
moderators.
Why
Yeah.
aren't you inviting Jim, dude?
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, now the
I think you
secret's
just,
out.
yeah, I think you just breached an awkward question. Why haven't you been inviting me, Ed? What the fuck? What the hell, dude?
I have. You've never returned my carrier pigeon
Yeah,
flavor.
it's
There's like a bunch of dead pigeons outside your house.
Don't.
Oh,
Oh, that's what that sounded 2 a.m. My dog keeps eating them, and he keeps showing up in the door. I was wondering. All right.
oh, your dog's name is Matcha. That's awesome.
Yeah, like matcha tea. Yeah, it's stupidly adorable.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
he's a
That'd be a cute Halloween costume for Matcha.
great.
So the one thing I want to say about the networking thing is when you're going to those things as an artist, like you got to be authentic about it, man. Like
Yeah.
you gotta have like gotta have like a good time. Because
Yeah.
I had that problem like very early on when I first came to Los Angeles of like just trying to meet people and trying to quote unquote network, and it felt inauthentic and was awkward for everybody involved, and like it was harder to form genuine connections as opposed to like going to like the sketch event or drink and draws or things like that where it's just a bunch of people that really like drawing and you have a good time and then you get to know people that way.
Yeah. That's a good point. Like, go there having fun. Don't go there going like, where do you work? What do you do? What's blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, like have fun, have a drink, have a snack, draw some weird stuff, show it to some people. Have fun with it.
Yeah. I think I've met more animation artists like in 2020 when Elden Ring came out, and like half the animation industry was tweeting about it, and I'm like I met like 50 animation artists that were just playing Elden Ring, and we're doing like Elden Ring fan comics. I was like, dude, I'm gonna follow this person. You're dope. Then we started talking and like eventually worked together sometime. It was cool as hell.
That's awesome. That's really funny.
But like yeah, like having that authentic connection, or
Yeah.
having when you're excited about the same thing, or talking about like Scavengers Reign online, or you're at a drink and draw event and you start talking to somebody about a show that you love. That stuff comes across
Yeah.
as it's much easier to make a genuine connection that way. It's dope.
Agreed. Well,
Cool.
I put in the chat before I leave. I put in this this great geriatric abuse scene from Royal Crackers. Check it out, and maybe
Fantastic.
watch the show.
I'm gonna put that on loop. Is it an infinite loop?
It
think
could
it is.
definitely be made into one, but this is actually in the episode.
Just
Jesus
30
Christ.
seconds. This is great.
It just keeps falling, and it's definitely my favorite gag. One of my favorite gags for season 1.
That's
Yeah, thank you
fantastic.
guys so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thanks
offering to do
spending
this,
time
man.
with
This
us,
is
yeah.
absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for your time.
of course, and thank you everyone for coming. And good luck to everybody. And I hope to see you all in the real world sometime, and at least see your resumes.
Hell yeah.
Yep. All
Awesome.
right.
Good
Thanks,
night,
everybody. Good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Recording will be up eventually for posterity and whatnot. Oh, you got balloons. Sweet.
That's
Cool.
cool.
Awesome. Oh, I don't remember. I think it's just part of what I was saying. Anyways, thank you guys so much. Thank you very much. Thank you for doing this.
See
Have a great
everyone.
night.
Take care.
Sleep well.
Yeah.
Be excellent to each other. Bye.